he had no connection to Brad Pitt and still have no connection to Brad Pitt. I don't know how he feels about it or whatever, but we're both still around after all these years, which I think is kind of a cool parallel.
Shania, it's good to see you again. It's a pleasure to catch up. Last time we spoke, you were going to planning your Queen of Me album and Queen of Me tour, and I know you've been really busy lately. And we're very much looking forward to seeing you in the UK as well. But today, we want to focus on your Come On Over album. Such a successful album over the years, 40 plus million copies, Guinness World Record, biggest selling studio album of all time for a female artist. I'm not reminding you of this, by the way. I'm reminding, any viewers or listeners too. And now the Diamond Edition for Come On Over is coming out August 25th, charted 25 years ago. There's so many hit singles on this album. Are you aware when you're recording it at the time, song by song, that you're onto something so special, or is it you just got no clue how big it's going to end up?
I had no clue how big it was going to end up. I have to be really honest. There were some elements of the album that were undeniably strong from my point of view. It doesn't mean that that other people are going to feel the same way, Certainly would not have expected there to be 12 singles. In fact, as those singles were rolling out and the demand was growing, I was literally chasing those hits. I could barely keep up. I was making videos, editing videos, photo shoots, magazine covers. It was just, I was physically running through that whole huge moment in my career, and a long one. And now we're talking about the Diamond Edition 25 years later. I'm actually only really celebrating the success of it now. I only have the headspace to celebrate it now. So it's a great feeling. I'm so glad that it's come around to this full circle moment.
It's almost like you were too busy at the time. You're so busy, like with your head down, that now you can sit back and go, okay, no, I totally get that. We want to delve into the album, of course we do, and look at some of the songs on there. And I've got to start with You're Still the One. It's a huge favorite for our listeners here. And I wanted to know a little bit about it. It's kind of like the ultimate love song, but written by your then husband, co-written with your then husband, Mud. And I'm wondering now, how does that feel when you look back or when you perform it to this day? Does it have any? Are you thinking about memories back then, or how are you doing it now in 2023 in your head?
Well, You're Still the One has definitely gone through its own life cycle to now. I mean, it's the song of longevity, I'm sure, or at least I hope that the song's life carries well on after I'm passed. But from the inception of the song, it's me with my guitar sitting, and it's very much a folky feeling. I mean, it's the same feel now, even on the record. But if you just have it on guitar, it's a very folky feeling. And then Mutt comes in the room, loves what I'm doing. He's coming in from the studio or something, loves it. He feels right away that it's a great song. And then he sings the pre-chorus hook, You're Still the One. Now, acoustically, you wouldn't do that part. That's like a musical arrangement hook. But that was Mutt's, role in that song. The real hook that everybody, he's like the hook maker. And then, did a beautiful arrangement on the song as a producer. But that song is just a typical me sit around kind of song to write. And ironically, I have more kick-in, high-energy hits than ballads, but I think the ballads, You're Still the One, might even be my biggest hit. And From This Moment On is right up there as well. And I love to write ballads, but I'm a very high-energy performer, so I have to say that I enjoy the fact that I have a lot of energized songs too.
Well, you're able to give the audience, especially live, that whole take them up and party mode, and then bring them back down, and a little romance or whatever's going on too. So it's perfect to have the whole catalog, isn't it? The whole range, effectively. Did I see somewhere as well that you were almost not concerned, or somebody maybe at the record company saying, about doing a ballad at that time?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. This hybrid Shania that was so much of my whole life, the rock years, the country years, all of that, the female sass attitude that is actually me, was so working. It was so true to who I was as an artist that that the label was like, it might be your formula, it's unique to you, but it's a formula that's working. Don't change it, right? I think that the song just was obviously so strong. Just to everyone, they understood the strength of it, that finally there it was. But yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, no, I think that if I had allowed A&R dominance, I may not have even gotten to a ballad.
Wow.
I mean, that's the way it is. You have to be, and I don't blame anyone for trying to stick with the winning formula, right? It's better to show the whole artist. Obviously, it served me well. I'm so glad we got to that one.
Absolutely. It just proves don't always listen to other people. Go with your own gut feeling. You mentioned the sassy female sound that we're so used to as well. So I wanted to talk about Man, I Feel Like a Woman next. What inspired that title, Shania?
I wish I could tell you that I had this incredible inspiration, but it was, Mud had been sitting around doing this riff. I mean, it had nothing to do with Man, I Feel Like a Woman, but it was just this really cool riff, the riff that we know in the song. And he said, I just need a lyric that phrases dot, dot, da, da, dot, dot, dot. He said, just work on that. That's your mission. I just need a dot, dot, da, 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 dot. No other direction. There was no concept or anything to the song. And I love that kind of creative challenge. That's what every song writer loves about songwriting, I think, just trying to solve that puzzle. So we were at the breakfast table, I would say after about a half an hour of throwing out lyrics with that phrasing and that cadence, it just came out. And he's like, that's it. That's the one. Stop right there. That is, he was really excited about it. So my mission was over and he was happy and he's the producer. So I'm like, yeah, all right.
Job
and the
done.
rest, no, I wasn't done. I was just beginning, but
Yeah.
at least the direction and the concept of the song was then obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's become such a feminist and also an LGBT plus anthem. How do you feel about that? It's taken on a new life force again, hasn't it?
You know what? The title really just means, man, I'm happy to be myself. Like, how great is it to be me? That's what it is. And I was at a point where I was just starting to really learn how to, embrace loving being a woman. There's so many things in my youth that made me really not think it was an advantage to be a woman. But I was really starting to feel like I think there's a lot of really awesome things about being a woman, and that's a longer story. But the statement that statement really was true to me at the time. I was like, yeah, I was like, I was in the mode of grabbing my female self by the horns and taking it on for the good and the bad of it.
Sure. Well, that's definitely how it ended up anyway. That's how it sounded to our ears. Now, moving on along the album, that don't impress me much. The one thing that jumped out of my into my mind straight away was like, why Brad Pitt?
I know this doesn't sound like a very thoughtful reason, but there's, when you're a songwriter, you're always drawing from inspiration. A lot of that inspiration is whatever it is that's around you. I take everything in very peripherally, and Brad Pitt's photo and name was just everywhere at the time. It was for one reason or another. There was always a reason why Brad Pitt was on a cover, 10 covers at a time. He was in, paparazzi headlines and big movie. He was everywhere. And the lyric that I was looking for, the syllable flow of it was perfect. Short and sweet, Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
And that's it. It just worked perfectly for all those reasons. And I had no connection to Brad Pitt and still have no connection to Brad Pitt. I don't know how he feels about it or whatever, but we're both still around after all these years, which I think is kind of a cool parallel.
Absolutely. I think there was a naked photo of him appeared in Playgirl roughly around about that time too that caught a bit of attention.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like he was everywhere, even naked. You know what I'm saying? There was like no way you could avoid Brad Pitt.
Although Ryan Reynolds got a little mention, I know, more recently, in that particular song. But I've just kind of like a little update to it for you. Next song I'd just like to talk to you about was From This Moment On. Was I right thinking that you had somebody else in mind when you were working on that song? Celine Dion's name came into the equation. Is that right?
Yes. I wrote that song in my head. It's something that I do a lot at the same time as other things. When I'm playing tennis, I write. When I'm riding a horse, I'm writing. When I'm cooking, I'm writing. So I'm at a football game and I'm writing. I'm writing from this moment on. And as I'm writing the melody, I'm thinking, this is a Celine Dion song. It's a perfect melody. I'm writing, the flow of the lyrics with her in mind. The whole thing's with her in mind. And my dream was for her to record it, but she never heard it because Mutt made sure that I recorded it, and he wanted it to stay as my record, which is great. I'm glad it all turned out so fabulously, but that dream never came true. I think it would have been as or more fabulous if she had done it, but
yeah. Well, so it must be very difficult for a songwriter to almost give away a beautiful or brilliant song to somebody else so they have the success with it. But I'm also thinking that there was talk about a duet with Elton John as well on that song.
Well, there was always talk, about duets with Elton John. I don't know if it was that particular song.
Okay.
He was always such, a dream duet artist for me. And we have been able to do that live, which is super great. He's one of my absolute idols. So I'm sure that talk did come up, but I don't know if it was specifically for that song.
Sure. Okay. Another song on the album. I mean, we're spoiled for choice, aren't we? Like we said earlier on, so many. Don't Be Stupid. Did this song come out of a real world experience? Because it's quite a straight to the point title, isn't it?
It is, but I just like my straight to the point exclamation kind of statement title. It's kind of. I realize over time that is just, I like to write that way, and I like to write very conversationally. So the way you would say it or state it is the way I like to relay it and then build around it. So, don't be stupid. Don't be silly, but silly sounds ridiculous. So I'm like, don't be silly. I love you. Don't be stupid. I love you. It just was more of a statement that way, a punctuated statement. And just another silly love song that I wrote with a sense of humor.
Sure. And the video featured a load of river dance dances too. They were like, a thing back then for sure. How did that come about?
Because the gang fiddles, they were very, I thought, folky, Irish sounding in nature as a part, yet I could just hear I could visualize. To me, the visualization was the river dancing.
Okay.
And water. I just saw the water, and I guess I imagined it. It's just every song that I write always has a visual to it as I'm writing it. It's part of the whole story of the song.
Okay. Well, now that we move on to yet another song from Come On Over, You've Got Away. It featured in the Notting Hill soundtrack as well. And I'm curious, when somebody, presumably they have to approach you, do they, and say, look, we'd like to use your song? Or how do you feel about that when somebody wants to use your song totally out of context for a movie?
It's always a compliment to me because I'm such a big movie fan. And I know the importance of music in a movie, in film, how it is, again, an extension of the story. It enhances the story. So it was a huge compliment. And it's such a perfect song for it. So I was I'm flattered.
I must be, and absolutely, and a whole new audience will get to experience it too. That must be the beauty of it when those sort of things happen as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
What inspired that particular song, You've Got Away?
That song started with melody. Yeah, I think back through it now. It's a song. I wrote that song on the guitar. I tend to write my ballads in a very similar way all the time. They always start in a very melancholy, folky way until they're arranged and produced. This one stayed as slow as it was. I was surprised that Mud kept it that slow, because I do tend to write my ballads slower than they get recorded. But that one he kept very slow, which I thought was very sensitive as the producer to keep it slow like that. It wasn't necessarily radio friendly being so slow like that, but it did make it right for a film.
And a perfect little marriage, the film and the song together.
Yeah.
Next song, Love Gets Me Every Time. The first single from Come On Over. Was there a particular reason why you chose that song as the first single?
It does have, we were coming out of The Woman in Me, which was more established as a country genre album by the skin of its teeth. So going into how to release songs from Come On Over, which was a more progressively edgier album stylistically, with more rock guitars, more of my rock influence and more of Mutt's rock influence. Love Gets Me Every Time had more pop, so it was a little more palatable as a mix between genres of country, or mixing with country. So the pop country was seemed like a good start,
Sure.
a good introduction to the album, and it was just really fun and bubbly. I knew I would enjoy it live, which was very important, because I knew that there was a pending tour that I was eventually going to have. So I wanted to make sure that whatever the songs were that were released by the time I got on tour would be, energy and fun for me to do live.
Well, we're so looking forward to seeing you in the UK next month. So we cannot wait, because the others have had a chance to see you, but we haven't yet. So we cannot wait.
That makes me happy. Thank you very much. See you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to see you again. And thanks for your time.
Thank you.